Fellow Rotarians, distinguished guests, good evening. I am past President Rodolphe Melki, Chair of the Admin Committee of the Rotary Club Beirut Cedars. I would like to welcome you all to this special event with a very special guest, Past District Governor Jean-Luc Perrin. But before, I would like also a big thank you to the Rotary clubs which have decided to support this event and joined their hands with ours. These clubs are the Rotary clubs of Aley, Beirut Cadmos, Beirut Metropolitan, the Rotary Club of Beirut, who has celebrated yesterday 90 years of existence, the Rotary Club of Chouf, Hammana Upper Metn, Metn Gate, Tripoli, Cosmopolis, and Tyre, Europa. And before presenting our speaker, I would like to present you the events to come. On April 13, we have Dr. Georgette Zinatti, who will be talking about barrier and bridges, the role of allies and champions in female success. On May 4, we have Mr. Bonaventure Fandohan. He's from Rotary International Area of Focus Manager, Community Economic Development Programs and Grants. The topic will be Best Economic and Community Development Strategy and Approach for Global Grant Funding. This is an extremely important session, and he will teach us as Rotarians in Lebanon how to apply for global grants. Before presenting our guest, I will leave the floor to our President, Roni Farah. President.
Thank you, Rodolphe. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Jean-Luc, to our webinar. Founded 12 years ago, Rotary Club Beirut Cedars has now 34 members in 4 continents, in Lebanon, but also in USA, France, Belgium, Germany, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. All our activities aim for peace in our city, peace in the country, and peace in the world. Today, over 70 million people are displaced as a result of conflict, violence, persecution, and human rights violations. Half of them are children. As Rotarians, we refuse to accept conflict as a way of life. Rotary projects provide training that fosters understanding and provides communities with the skills to resolve conflicts. As a humanitarian organization, peace is a cornerstone of Rotary's mission. We believe when people work to create peace in their communities, that change can have a global effect. By carrying out service projects and supporting peace fellowships and scholarships, Rotarians take action to address the underlying causes of conflict, including poverty, discrimination, ethnic tension, lack of access to education, and unequal distribution of resources. Rotary's commitment to peace building today answers new challenges, how we can make the greatest possible impact, and how we can achieve our vision of lasting change. Rotary is approaching the concept of peace with greater cohesion and inclusivity, broadening the scope of what we mean by peace building and finding more ways for people to get involved. Rotary creates environments where peace can happen. On a sour note, I have to say that Lebanon missed this year a $15 million opportunity to have a new Rotary Peace Center established in Lebanon. Although Notre Dame University, in which I am a trustee, offered the space, the building, the curriculum already established and taught, Rotary chose a different Middle Eastern country because students from a neighboring country cannot be allowed into Lebanon. This is most unfortunate, but we will keep working for peace because as Rotarians, we are practitioners, educators, mediators, and advocates. Back to you, Rodolphe.
Thank you, President Roni. Before presenting our speaker, I would like to inform the Rotarian that during the presentation, they will have the possibility write their question in the Q&A window at the bottom of their computer. And after past district governor has made his presentation, I will read your question to him. So now I present our speaker. Jean-Luc Perrin is graduated from the École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne in applied mathematics. He was appointed as a professor in mathematics at the University of Oran in Algeria. He started an international career as statistician to the Economic Commission for Western Asia from 1998 to 1982, and in Beirut, and then in Baghdad from 82 to 85. This is why our speaker speaks very well Arabic. He joined in 85 the United Nations Joint Staff Pension Fund office in Geneva and was transferred to the World Intellectual Property Organization in 1987, where he assumed various responsibilities, such as Director of Personnel, Administrative, Director for Patents Department, Director General Counselor, and Director of Trademarks and Industrial Design Department. Jean-Luc Perrin is Rotarian since 1986 in the Rotary Club Beirut Cedars in France, nearby Geneva. He has been its president in 93 and 94. At the district level, he has been assistant district governor from 2009 to 2011, governor councillor in 2010, 2011, and 2016, 2017. Secretary of the District Committee on Strategic Development from 2010 to 2013, District International Service Chair from 2017 to 2020, and District Governor in 2020-2021. Since July 2021, he is representative to the United Nations and other international organizations in Geneva, appointed by the President of Rotary International. Past District Governor, Jean-Luc Perrin, the floor is yours.
مساء الخير بيروت. كيفكن? It's a real pleasure to be with you tonight. Well, thanks, of course, first to Ronald and Rodolphe for their most welcome words, and also to Gilles Bourgogne, who I hope is around tonight, and he's a member of our Rotary Action Group for Peace, France. Well, the subject of tonight is a very long subject since it started very long ago. Well, let me start first with a little bit of history. As you know, Rotary was created in Chicago in 1905, February 23rd, as you all know. And actually, Rotary was exported quite rapidly to Canada in 1910, and thus became international at that time. And then exported to Europe in London in 1911, and you can imagine that was not certainly that easy at that time. But that means that actually Rotary is international much more before the international organization. In 1914, just before Europe fell into the World War I, the Rotarians of Hamilton, Ontario, proposed at the 5th Convention of the International Association of Rotary Clubs in Houston that Rotary use its influence for the maintenance of peace among the nations of the world. Imagine, we are in 1914. We are in May 1914, and the Rotarians are trying already to use their influence to make peace around the world, which of course didn't work well because a few months later we had the World War I. But this is probably why also we are so linked with the United Nations. By 1922, Rotary was established on every and each continent. So we were worldwide at that time, predecessor of the United Nations. In 1942, Rotary Club from 21 countries with their ministers of education met in London during the war to start process of creating UNESCO, which was eventually created in November 1945. So already during the war, Rotarians met together to discuss the possibility of making education part of the steps to be taken to have peace around the world. As early as 1943, following a conference, the Dumbarton Oaks near Washington Conference, between the United States, Russia, Great Britain, and China, which gave the beginnings of the creations of United Nations. Just immediately thereafter, Rotary published a book distributed to all the Rotarians, showing the resemblance between the goals of Rotary and those of this ambitious project, and Rotarians to get new world organization. As you may know, in the springs of 1945 in San Francisco, there was this big event, which was the creation, the Conference of San Francisco, which gave birth to United Nations. The United States delegations included, at the request of the government, 11 Rotarians. With the 38 Rotarians from other delegations around the world, they were starting to draft the committee, in the drafting committee, the charter, the preamble, and in particular, the Article 71, which opened the door to consultation with whom? With the non-governmental organization, such as Rotary. And also the second objective of United Nations, which is, of course, related to our goal, developing friendly relations among nations. That's why Rotary got an observer seat with the United Nations and other international organizations. So we are having this seat not only in New York, but also in Geneva and in Nairobi and in Paris, and so in many other countries where United Nations and other international organizations have a representation. Actually, it's interesting to keep in mind that we are covering 200 countries and territories, and actually international organizations, UN organizations, have only 193 countries. So we are more represented around the world than United Nations. You may know also, and you may remember for the oldest one of us, that a Rotarian, René Cassin, a Nobel Prize in 1968, was one of the 49 Rotarians which participated at the San Francisco conference, but was also one of the 9 writers of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So we can be very proud of being Rotarians. More recently, you remember that United Nations developed the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which was established by United Nations in 2015, and which cover actually the areas of focus of the foundations. There are various specific examples of Rotary programs and projects that demonstrate the contributions and support of the SDGs, such as, well, of course, the eradication of polio, projects related to diabetes, autism, dyslexia, and a very actual example, the various actions and projects that were developed by Rotarians related to COVID-19. All these issues relate to SDG 3. Also projects such as RELA, Model United Nations, Rotary scholarships, are related to SDG 4, and many projects related to the environment, related to SDGs 12, 14, and 15, are a good example of what Rotarians can contribute to development, sustainable development goals from United Nations. What is not really a surprise, the area of focus, you know them by heart, of course. Education, well, which is represented by UNESCO. The economic development, I was used to work with ESCWA, which is part of the development of economics in the region. ECOSOC, of course, also. Disease and treatment with WHO, and maternal health and polio eradication. You have the water and sanitation with the UN Water. You have the environment with UNEP. And all these areas of focus are what contributing actually to peace, which is working with UN. So no, we have a lot of common with the United Nations. I've just demonstrated that we have the area of focus, clearly. And this area of focus, we can say that we are the generalists and the UN are the specialized agencies, because we are covering in our actions every day these areas of focus. But we have common challenges as well. The common challenges are, well, first of all, keep in mind that the Rotary at the UN have been built up actually by, let's say, the Western countries. Clearly, these Western countries created something which related to the Western cultures. So we have to face now something very interesting, is that in our Rotary, like in the United Nations and other international organizations, we have a move to the Asian countries. Clearly, in Rotary, we know that it's more difficult to recruit Rotarians in our Western countries. But look at the figures. Asia is becoming the most important part for the Rotary. In terms of United Nations, of course, it's a little bit different. But there has been quite recently a very big increase in politics from the Asian countries. And definitely, United Nations has to count on the influence of China, of course, but also India, but also Japan, but also South Korea. All these countries are becoming more and more important in terms of political ties to the United Nations. So we have these in common. We have to adapt ourselves to cultural change in clubs and country. Now, I would like to talk a little bit about the future, because we are in action, and that's very much important. Rotary is not working at the political level. I mean, if we want to make peace, definitely, I don't think we can intervene between, let's say, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un, or at present between Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky. So we cannot do that, but we can do a lot more in common action on the ground at the national and the local level. We have to develop synergies, and we have started already to develop that. We have to find ways of communicating with you and other internet to implement with them common projects. We have done so already with WHO, and you all remember, of course, the start of the polio eradication, and we are going to finish it with WHO. I've had a meeting this week with the head of the polio eradication at WHO, and clearly we have had only one case of the wild virus in the world since 2022 over the last 3 months, which is a great success. Don't forget that last year we had 4 cases in total in 2021. So we are going to success with polio eradication. So that means that we can work with international organizations. I am currently working with WHO also on developing project on a very important subject, which is related to mother and child health. We in Geneva, we are of course working also with the peace project, and as we know, we have developed, and there is around the world a Rotary Action Group for Peace. Join that. There are concrete projects can be implemented. And in Geneva, we have been working quite a lot with Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we can do something. We have also project with Aley on training and women empowerment. We have project with WMO. Probably you don't know what the WMO is. It's based in Geneva, and it's working on meteorology. Well, what can we do with the meteorology? We can warn risk. We can send signal to the agricultural sector. We can signal that heat waves are coming, or flooding, or storms. And it's not only in the capital that they should know all these things, but also in the countryside. We have to work also with WTO on economic development. All these things, of course, is possible because we have common goals with all these international organizations. Therefore, Rotary and we are encouraging you to strengthen the relation further between the United Nations and the Rotary at your local and national level. We have to work together. You are the local representative, and United Nations, they have offices in your country. I've counted that probably, if I remember, you have 24 Rotary clubs in Lebanon, and you have about the same number of UN organizations based in Lebanon. So go and see them and try to develop with them new projects, because we have the same goal, and probably what they do need is local culture, local connection, so that they can reach the people with your help on the ground and develop projects. Together, we will be stronger to serve above staff self, and one profits most who serve best. Shukran jazilan, dear friends.
Thank you very much, Past District Governor, for this excellent presentation. The floor is open to the Q&A session. So please, you can write your question, and Past District Governor Jean-Luc Perrin will be very happy to answer them. Past District Governor, we know that Rotary holds the highest consultative status offered to a non-governmental organization by the United Nations in the Economic and Social Council. You spoke about the challenges to come, what clubs can do at a local level. As a representative of Rotary, you see in United Nations, you have somebody representing every country. But on your side, you are one person representing all the countries, all Rotary clubs, all religions, all colors. So how a person like you, one person, can make a difference or make his voice heard by the United Nations?
Well, thank you for this question. Actually, I'm not the only one first in Geneva. We have a team of 5. I am the primary representative, but I have 4 assistants, and they have their own organizations covering their own organizations. So we are already a team of 5 Rotarians covering these. Well, we have about 22 international organizations in Geneva. So clearly it would be a lot of work for just one person. Now, the fact is that we have to develop, and this is really what we are doing, we have to develop a network between Rotarians and these officials, international civil servants of international organizations. And that's how we can discuss with them, not only in conferences, because in conferences you can speak probably once in a week, but we are developing contacts with them and we can work more in the corridor. We can, I mean, all these type of networks that you can develop when you are working in international organization is very much important, because you can see all the delegates from countries and you can speak to them and you can explain what we are doing and how what we are doing can fetch in their program. And sometimes they are listening to you and sometimes not, but you just have to push, and you have to push not only with the representative of the nations, but also with the secretariat of the international organization. And that's why our presence in Geneva, it's very much helpful.
Thank you, Past District Governor. I have a question from Past District Governor Doug Vincent. And he's saying, what are upcoming plans for a Rotary UN Day in New York and or Geneva?
Well, as I said, we have a Rotary Day at WHO, which will be organized on the 21st and 22nd of October at the WH quarters. And of course, International President Jennifer Jones will be coming, and also Dr. Tedros. Everybody knows Dr. Tedros, who is the Director General of WHO. So we are working on this 2 days meeting, and you will be all invited, except that, well, we have a limitation of 530 or so people in the meeting room, but you will be all invited to attend if you so wish, and you will be also able to attend on video conference. So this will be also a possibility. So 21st and 22nd of October. And this will be on mother and child health. Well, first of all, we will make a point on the status of the polio eradication. And hopefully at that time, we will still have only one case in 2022. But actually what is happening with WHO is that in 2023 or in 2024, the eradication will be erased from the world. That will be great. But we have demonstrated that with the team of WHO and Rotary, we can work together. And we have a lot of teams in the different countries to vaccinate all these people. So the idea would be probably to use this team of people around the world to contribute to the vaccination for other diseases. Probably this disease will not be eradicated from the earth, but we can reduce a number of diseases around the world using the teams that we have been built up over the years. So this will be part of the discussions that we will have on the 21st and 22nd of October in Geneva at WHO headquarters.
It would be good, Past District Governor, to send us also, if possible, how to register to this meeting, and they will forward it to the Rotarians here in Lebanon.
Be sure that it will be sent around the world. I don't know if you remember, but in 2017, we have had organized in Geneva a Rotary Day at the UN on peace. And I know that there were quite a lot of people coming from around the world. I was the head of the secretariat of that big conference, and there were 1,400 people coming from around the world. Of course, at that time, it was before the pandemic. So that means that we didn't know that well, all these Zoom meetings. So definitely we will be much better this time to provide all the information to all of whom who will be participating in that conference.
Thank you. We have, what is Rotary planning to work on supporting eradication after polio? We know polio that we are very close to eradicate polio, or this is what we say every year. So is there any plans for another similar project? I don't know, maybe COVID, maybe something different that Rotary is working on?
Well, this is of course a very good question, but of course it should be probably addressed to a doctor than to a mathematician. Actually, what I understand, but probably I am afraid that among the participants there will be some doctors, but what I understand is that we can eradicate the polio because it's a disease which is transmitted from human to human. And this is why we can eradicate polio, because in vaccinating all the humans, then you can eradicate the polio. And there are not so many diseases which have this ability. So I think what we are planning is not necessarily eradicate the polio. Well, eradicate the polio, yes, we can do that. Eradicate another disease. But what we want is really to decrease the number of children who are not vaccinated. We have an enormous number of children who are receiving 0 dose of vaccination at their birth. And we have to decrease this number of children so that, well, progressively, there are less disease which make them disabled. We have also a project on malaria. I know that Lebanon is not really subject to malaria. Probably it used to, but not nowadays. But we are working also on the malarian project. But eradicate a disease is not that simple. And if it's being transmitted by, in particular, animals, it's more difficult because you cannot vaccinate the animals.
True, true. We have a question from May Khodur. She's thanking you and she's asking, are there other international NGOs like Lions and other associations represented in the United Nations?
Yes, you are right. Just Lions. Yeah, they are also represented. Well, of course, you have NGOs who are represented not as an observer, so they have a card as an NGO, but they cannot take the floor. We are only 2 NGOs which a status of observers. We have Rotary first, and later on, Lions got also the status of observer. Yeah.
We have a very interesting question from Suad Assaf. She's saying, very important subject. We need to go further for joint projects with the UN. What will be the possibility to have global grants to help Lebanon during these difficult moments, especially with WHO?
Well, I mean, you know the rules of the foundation. I mean, the rules of the foundation will be the same. That means that probably, for instance, if you are with WHO building a house for, I don't know, for nurses, you know that definitely you won't be able to build a house because the foundation will not admit that. But if you want to buy the equipment, you can do that through a global grant. Of course, you will have to find a club in another country, but I'm sure if you don't find one, I can assist you in that, because we certainly have different possibilities of contacting clubs if you have a project. So definitely, yes, if you are in contact with a local international organization, be WHO or well, probably you can also go to UNDP, because UNDP also, they are overlooking a lot of projects in Lebanon. So probably you can select with them a project, and then you can ask for a global grant, provided that the rules of the foundations are respected.
Thank you, and expect from us a call very soon regarding some projects for global grants. I have a question from Joe Hatton. The current challenge in Lebanon is to have functional and reliable blood banks. At present, we can only rely on donors from family and friends. Any time for this? Any plan?
Again, I'm not really a specialist, so probably this is a good question for WHO, for WHO representative. But as I said, you have a WHO representative in Beirut, so don't hesitate to go. And I have to agree with you that probably I was a very bad Rotarian when I was in the international organization. Well, of course, I was working quite hard, but I mean, I've never think about making a link with the international organization. And this is really sad because, again, I mean, the subjects they are working on are really common to our areas of focus. So it's just that we don't speak. And probably what is interesting is that the international organization, they have international staff members, and these international staff members are not necessarily the local connection. So we are the Rotarians can make this bridge between the international staff member and the local connection. So let's try to do that.
We have a question from Jean-François Parmentier. Thank you for the interesting presentation. The world currently goes through a real crisis of multilateralism. Impossible to find a consensus on climate change, on Ukraine. Many countries around the world are demanding a reform of the United Nations Security Council, etc. What could the UN learn from the Rotary model and mindset?
This is actually a very good question. It's true that multilateralism is changing now. We have, I mean, since the San Francisco conference, we have had a sort of multilateralism which was covering all countries around the world. This is going to be much more limited these days. So in Rotary, as you may know, there are some ideas of shaping Rotary's futures. Probably you have heard about that. And one of the ideas would be to have a multilateralism in Rotary, but more at the territorial level. And probably, and this is something which is already discussed in the international organizations, in UN international organizations, to see how the multilateralism that was worldwide could first start working at the territorial level, regional level, and then be developed at a higher level. But clearly, there are some aspects that should be developed to give more power to a territorial level. What we mean by territorial probably has to be more defined, but this is definitely a way that we will recommend to have more powerful action on the ground. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Just to inform our Rotarians and guests that they can also ask their question in French. Vous pouvez poser vos questions en français et notre intervenant se fera un plaisir de vous répondre. I will go to the next question from Fred Vincent. And he's saying, what could Rotary International and UN in Geneva to do bring peace in some countries, like Ukraine, for instance?
Well, actually, as I said, when the tensions are very high, it should be left to the governments. But so I don't know in Ukraine if we can do something now. We can certainly bring a lot of relief as the Rotarians, and that's what we are doing in Europe, definitely. We have in France sent already more than valued, probably more than 200,000 euros to try to assist the refugees. And where it's very useful is that we have Rotary clubs in Romania, Rotary clubs in Ukraine, Rotary clubs in Poland, and we are working with them. But that's not peace. Actually, I will take the example that I gave just recently on Bosnia-Herzegovina. What we have done there, it's quite interesting. And it was a test to see what Rotary can see in terms of peace. You remember, of course, all the war in this country. You have the Serbs, you have the Croats, and you have the Bosnians. We started to contact the Rotarians in the 3 different groups. Rotary clubs, I have to admit, like in the Western countries, the, let's say, average age is a little bit high. So that means that the Rotarians in this country were a little bit reluctant to try to work on peace with UN and Rotary in Geneva. So what we have done is that we have developed a project with the young generation to build peace, starting with them. And we selected, the first project was 18 young people, 6 from each group, and we asked them to work together for 1 week. At the start, actually, they were educated not to speak to the other groups. So a Bosnian was not speaking to a Serbs or to a Croats, and the same in the other way. So it was rather difficult, but it was successful. And after a week, what we discovered is that these young people from, if I remember, it was 16 to 20, these people discovered that, yes, the other was different, but you can speak and you can work with them. So now we are developing a new project, which is to train people in Bosnia-Herzegovina to do the same in their local communities. And we have started to train 19 trainers that will build in Bosnia-Herzegovina 17 of such a project. And progressively, we hope that more and more people at the young generation will be more close together and will build their own country in the future. This is, I think, definitely something that we have to develop, not, of course, in Ukraine, because Ukraine is, of course, full of solidarity, but probably with a lot of people in, let's say, the neighboring countries. I mean, you have the Belarusian and Ukraine. You can make them work together. Of course, we don't have to develop that necessarily between Russian and Ukrainian, because I have to admit that I know a little bit the issue. My goddaughter, no, sorry, not my goddaughter, the wife of my son is a Russian girl, and she was born in Donbass. She has been educated in Moscow, and most of her friends are in between the two. And definitely, I know that Russians are not opposed to Ukrainians, and this war is damaging quite a lot of this bad situation, is damaging the relationship. So we will have to build definitely something based on the Bosnian Herzegovinian project. So it's very tough in Ukraine, but at this time, I think we just have to leave the government to try to solve the issues.
Thank you. We have here a testimony from Doug Vincent, and he's saying our Woodstock Oxford Rotary group here in Canada is already talking to President Ron, the president of our club, and looking at being an international sponsor for such a global grant initiative. And he is saying he's happy to have other clubs join them. So thank you very much, Doug, for your great support. I have here a very interesting question from Yumna Aboud. In fact, she's saying, with the election of the first woman as the Rotary president next year, will this pave the way for more women leaders in the Rotary and worldwide? And will Rotary focus more on improving women's lives across the world and especially emerging countries? Very interesting question.
Yeah, I think don't forget also that Sheikh Ahmeta has made one of his priorities the women empowerment. So already this year, Rotary is engaged in a way that we cannot go back. And as it was said, it will be an honor for us to have Jennifer Jones as our president next year. I think this subject is very much important. And I'm actually working presently with the WTO and the ILO and the WMO as well, the Multilateralism organization, because at their request, they want Rotary clubs to select some women to be sponsored and trained by Rotary in different aspects of their organizations. So yes, clearly Rotary is involved with the UN organization to try to assist through the foundation, through global grants, for training more women in skilled and technical jobs so that they are able to be more proactive in the economic development of their home country. This is the pace. I mean, there is no other way to do it. We have to do it.
I share with you the same thing. I believe, Past District Governor, that we need to trust more women, because I strongly believe that they can make significant change to the world. So I really encourage this. Moreover, we might have soon, as a speaker in our club, somebody that you know very well, Valerie Wafer, Vice President of Rotary International, she's the Rotary Director, and she will be soon also our speaker.
But I am proud. I am proud also. I said that we were 5 representatives in Geneva, and so I have 4 colleagues, and among the 4 colleagues, I have 3 women. Perfect,
and we salute them. I have a question, and most probably it will be the last one. It is a more personal. So when you are appointed for how long?
Actually, I am appointed by the international president. So the mandate is for 1 year.
Okay.
So I'm just in the hand of Jennifer Jones to see whether I will pursue my task. I hope so, because I'm preparing her coming to Geneva. So I hope so. But if she decided not, well, I will be back as a Rotarian, and there is no problem with that.
We wish you the best, and we hope that you will be able to continue what you have already started. Last question. You don't deal sometimes when you are at the United Nations with some kind of frustration, where you have the United Nations, they have different priorities than the priorities that we have as Rotarians. So you don't find it a little bit frustrating?
It's a very good question. Again, well, all of the questions were very good, but this is a very touchy subject. The fact is that we are Rotarians. We are in action. This is our gene, and we want concrete results. And probably, well, I know that to have a global advance, maybe it takes, from time to time, it may take 18 months, maybe 2 years, depending on how the dossier is presented. But basically, we want to have an immediate action. But I worked for this international organization. And the goal of this international organization are not necessarily an immediate answer to a problem. We are working for the long term. I mean, United Nations, other international organizations are looking at the very long term. So yes, you are right. We are frustrated. Yes, we want to see things happening more quickly, more rapidly, more efficiently. But they are working, international civil servants, they are working on the long term. So, and don't forget that they are working with, as I said, 193 countries. And they are working with the national government. Well, I know that in Lebanon, national government to work with, sometimes it may be a little bit difficult. So, I mean, all these things have to be considered. So we are pleading, we are discussing, we are pushing, we are trying to do the most we can so that the role is running, the ball is running, that we continue to work together. And well, we have to say that we have the frustration, but we continue to push because we don't have the same scale of time.
Thank you. We have two things, a testimony and a last question, past the Governor. The testimony is coming from Duke Vincent. He's saying that the goals and objectives of Rotary are very similar to the Charter of United Nations. So in principle, we are striving for the same thing. Many do not realize the first draft of the United Nations Charter was written by one of the 49 delegates who was from South Africa. And there is a statue in his honor in Cape Town. So now I come to my last question from Mike Haroon, and he's saying, where do you see the future of Lebanon in the next 5 years? As a Rotarian.
Well, you know that Lebanon is not very far from my heart. So of course, my wish is best for you. I mean, I have been visiting this country. Of course, it was, as you mentioned earlier, 40 years ago. But I mean, this country is really powerful. This country is really lovely, and Rotarians and Lebanese, I know them. Well, I knew them probably. I don't know them that much now, but I mean, this is part of my my sensitivity. Well, you know, as I said with you, is at the governmental level. It's not at the level of the Lebanese. So how long would it take for the government to really make Lebanon work together? I don't know. I mean, this is up to the politicians, like in the Ukraine. This is up to the politicians to see what do they want. What I'm sure of is that the Lebanese, they can achieve quite a lot of things together, and they have done that in the past, and they can build their future with confidence. I'm very much confident that at one point in time, Lebanon will be again one of the main countries in the Mediterranean environment. I'm very much convinced of that. Now, whether it will be within 5 years or not, it's very much my wish, but it's very much in the hand of the politicians in your country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor, for this excellent presentation. And now the floor is yours, President, to present our speaker's certificate on behalf of our club.
Well, I would like to thank you for this nice presentation about peace, about the United Nations, which we are all aiming to work towards this peace goal. Our Rotary has 28 clubs right now in Lebanon, and we are looking forward to add another 10 clubs in the coming year.
Congratulations, Mabruk.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to give you this certificate of appreciation. And if you come to Lebanon, we will give it by hand. Thank you very much again for your time and for everything you're doing for us.
Shukran jazilan, dear friends. Shukran jazilan. You are in my heart, definitely. And you will keep there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Past District Governor. And I would like a big thank you also to Guillaume Bourgogne, who made this meeting possible. Thank you very much, Guillaume. We'll be talking now about our next event. It will be on April 13. It will be with Dr. Georgette Zinati. So please be here. The topic is extremely interesting. Barriers and bridges, the role of allies and champions in female success. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and looking forward to seeing you very soon. And thank you once again, Past District Governor, for being with us.